I'm sure. So I first worked with him. I mean, I knew him from Billy on the Street, and then I cast him in Neighbors 2. He had a little part in that. And then I cast him in the show that I created with my wife called Friends from College. And he was a really good actor, which I didn't know. I knew he was really funny, but he was a really good actor. And then we screened the first episode, the pilot of that episode, in a movie theater. And every time he was on screen, the audience died laughing. Like, even if he just had a look. And I was like, oh, he's like a movie star. He's like, he deserves a movie to be built around him. And for many years, I'd been interested in the idea of a love story, like a romantic comedy about two gay men falling in love. But I'm straight. It's not my story to tell. And so I approached him and said to him, hey, would you want to build a movie around you? Like, I think you deserve a comedy vehicle. And he was into the idea. Yeah, I mean, he, obviously he brought his life experiences and all of that, all of that honesty and stuff. And then he'd never written a movie before. And so I've written a lot of screenplays at this point, and so I brought a lot of that, I guess, expertise and kind of how you write an honest studio comedy. So something that will have a happy ending, but one that's deserved, and that is super funny and honest. And obviously he's really funny. He has a good sense of his tone and whatnot. And he has a million things to say about gay life and about romance. And then I also just brought my own feelings about romance and about love. And I think that, my hope is that this film, it's obviously centers on two gay men, but the more specific your story are, the more relatable and the more universal it is. And so I hope that's the case with this too. I certainly identify with the film. It's why I wanted to direct it. It doesn't feel like it's about some foreign experience. And so I feel like bringing my own kind of experiences into it as well was something I did. Comedies are dramas. The best comedies are dramas. There's nothing, and if I look at the movies I've done, they're all dramas, essentially. They're not, it's the tone you bring to it. And I personally see the world through a comic lens. And so I don't think, and I also think comedy is the most honest of genres, because whenever something very dramatic has happened in my life, also it's happened in a very funny, weird way every time, and so I think that's like a big part of it. And so, the core of this movie, what is a scene that he talks about where he talks about his vulnerabilities he opens up to Aaron. And that was based on some stuff that he said to me, it wasn't, and that we then turned into that scene about his own life. And it's not autobiographical by any means to him, but it is a part of who he is and what makes him tick and what makes Bobby tick. And so I think the audience always responds to honesty. They respond to it if it's purely dramatic, and they respond to it if it's really funny too. And so you have to kind of follow that, But the audience won't laugh if something doesn't feel real. We started reading people, and it was one of those magical things where Luke walked into the room, and we were both like done. He did it. He walked in. And I completely saw the character, and then he and Billy were instantly hilarious together. And he left, and Billy and I just kind of nodded at each other, and we were like, okay, we found him. And it was also one of these things too where I was not aware of him, honestly, before he came in. And he's like a mega movie star. He's one of those guys, and he reminded me of a Chris Evans or something, He's very good looking, but he's also strangely relatable for someone who's so good looking. And he's funny too. He's light on his feet, And so, yes, but it was kind of, and then we kept reading people because you feel like you should, but the whole time we were like, we found him, And it was one of those things too, sometimes you have a few people that could play a part. There was no backup. Like, if he hadn't been able to do it, or if we hadn't found him, I don't know what the movie would be, which has happened to me a few times, but this was one of those remarkable, I just feel very lucky we found him. That was, I think, always in the script. It wasn't a reference to him. I think now we can be like, oh yeah, it's a self-aware reference, but it wasn't. We just thought like Billy's obsessed with those movies, and then he got me into them. Like, I turn them on now at Christmas, like a good Jew, and yeah, and so, but it was kind of just a funny benefit that he had been in so many of them. And he has skills from them. He has rom-com skills. Like, he can it's hard to do the smoldering look into camera that makes you your heart melt. That's a hard thing to do, and he can do it on a dime, which is one of those, we would all be around the monitor and all of us would be like, oh my God. We made that decision early on. I mean, from the beginning, we said we have to cast, Aaron has to be gay. And partially that's just felt like the right thing to do for the movie, but also the debate that's being had in the movie about the fake Oscar bait movie that's in the film called The Treasure Inside, that joke wouldn't have worked if we'd had a straight actor playing Aaron. And then when we did that, we were like, let's just cast the whole cast LGBTQ. Again, good for the movie, good for the world or whatever, but it also I knew that by doing that, it would force us to dig deep and find comic talent that maybe audiences weren't familiar with. And I think the secret weapon of any comedy is the funny person you've ever seen. If you think about like Melissa McCarthy with Bridesmaids or something like that, And so we found this group of people who are, found them. A lot of them have been around for a while, but they're so funny, and we get to have them do their thing on a big canvas, and that was very exciting for me.